Okay, in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you some of the tricks of using Google Earth, and especially how to apply them to doing a specific investigation that you will have been assigned, which is investigating how a river changes downstream. And why would you use Google Earth? You will have already looked at how to use Ordnance Survey maps to extract information, but Google Earth has a whole range of information that Ordnance Survey maps don't have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. How to also use the Street View function, which is down here with the little guy, as well as how to use the measuring tool, which is over here, to find out distances. So let's just start with the fact that you've decided you want to do a field trip. You've decided it's going to be on a river in this case, and you want to, before going there, scout out some locations that you might want to visit. Maybe look for parking access, look if there's access or easy access to the river itself in different locations. And rather than have to go out and do a trip there just to find these things out and then go home, you can actually use Google Earth to potentially to help you with this. So let's start with finding our river. So that's really simple in Google Earth. And rather than zooming around trying to find something, it just makes sense to use the search tool in Google Earth to find what you're looking for. And it's got the added function of it's also going to zoom in to, in this case, the River Armand. It's also going to bring up some photographs if any have been pinned to Google Earth, which we can see has happened. So there we go. It's popped a little pin in the River Armand. And it's zoomed in. It's going very, very slow. Apologize for that in this tutorial. Okay, here we go. It's zoomed me into the area of the map I'm interested in, and I can see my river appearing on my map. Rivers are normally quite easy to spot because they wind across landscapes. They're often got trees on either side, and they don't always, or they very form straight lines because of the way they meander. It also says the river, which makes my life a lot easier. Finding information can also be affected by your map style. So these are what we call map layers. So I've got the borders and labels layer turned on, but if I hit the clean layer, it would just turn everything off, and that just takes me down to the basic aerial view of Google Earth. I could put everything on, and it puts a whole range of information, including the roads, and as I zoom in, I'll actually notice lots of other landmarks and other key things have been added. But just to keep it simple at the moment, I'm going to stick with the exploration layer. Okay, so that's how to toggle between map styles. Now I'm going to show you how to use Street View to maybe scout out some locations. Now, in this study, you will have been asked to study this river between 2 points. And you've decided you want to find out what the river's like at the beginning and if there's any parking opportunities, and then what the river's like at the end, which of your investigation. And you're then going to walk along that river and visit various points along the course of that river, which I'm going to my mouse right now. Okay, so let's just have a look if we can actually use our Street View to scout out some locations. Now, the problem with Street View is Street View only works for places that cars with the Google camera have accessed. There are, however, some other locations which I'll show you in a minute, which are kind of almost like Google bubbles, which you can drop into, and they just show you a 360 panorama of a one location. But in this investigation, you've been asked to start your river study at this bridge in Almond Bank. I'm going to drop the little guy. I've picked him up over here using my mouse. I'm just dragging him over to here, and I'm going to drop him. Okay. And it's going to zoom me in and bring me to what is basically a 360 photograph of that location. So Google Earth itself is an aerial photograph taken from the sky looking down on the Earth. Street View is just a 360 photograph taken from a camera that's got a lens pointing in every direction. And there is my River Armand. So at this point, I'm starting my investigation here. I would consider, could I study this? Is this river deep enough? Is it shallow enough? Is it too wide? Is there somewhere I can maybe park my car? Am I going to be able to get down to the river bank there? So being able to actually get in this way using Street View will allow you to explore your locations more effectively. Okay, so I might even want to do a little screen grab, and you will be asked in this to actually grab one of these images and put it into this week's task, and then explore the advantages and disadvantages of this being a location which you're going to do a study in. So that's using the normal Street View photos. There are often no roads in an area where the Google car has gone. And in this case, I'm just going to orientate my photo back again. So if you hit this little compass down here, it should spin around and rotate or flick between the two. Let me just bring that back. Sorry about that. You can play around with this, actually changes the way it views. Right, there we are. The red arrow is pointing north, which means my image is pointing north. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Now, zooming in and out is easy for me because I've got a little roll on my mouse. If you don't have a roll on your mouse, you can use your touchpad if that's what you're using, or you can use this plus and minus. It's a little bit slower, and it is affected by how good your broadband service is. So I just find always zooming out a little bit allows me to scroll across quicker. That was our start location. We're now going to go and visit our end location. And this will bring in the advantage of using bubbles. So if I just zoom in a little bit, you will see at this location, here's the river arm, and just going to rotate actually. I'm going to pick up the guy again, little Street View person, and there, you can see a small little bubble has appeared right there. And there's another one right there. So if I drop him where that bubble is, it should take me into that particular image. So wherever you see a little blue circle, you see photo from that location. And I just jump into this particular location, which is where I'm going to finish off my study. And there's my river arm again. And you can clearly see it's a lot deeper and wider, which is what we would expect when a river's about to discharge into down here to the River Tay. So this is my final location, and in this task I'm going to be asking you to take a screenshot of that and also discuss the pros and cons of this. Okay, that's the first tool I wanted to show you, using Street View, using the zoom functions, and how to actually get your map facing north. So let me just get it back to north again. There we go. Second thing I want to look at is how to use the measuring tool. So you will have been asked to measure the land uses along the riverbank from this bridge, which is your end location, all the way to your start location, which was the bridge in Almond Bank. Okay. And I think we're downstream here. On the left-hand bank, we can see we've got forestry. But then roughly here, that forestry sort of stops and it looks like we've got a field, then we've got some more forestry. On this side, it looks like we've got some pathway, but actually the land use around the river is not pathway, it's an industrial estate. Likewise, here, if we thought this was forestry, then we might regard this little stretch as forestry. We might say, well, actually, most of the land use on this riverbank is actually a field. Once again, if we look over here, we look at the land use here, we might say, okay, on this riverbank, it's all forestry, but actually the land use just behind that little line of trees is fields. So when you're asked to do this task, you'll be thinking, you'll have to make a judgment about what you think the main land use is as you move back from the river on the left-hand bank and on the right-hand bank. And you're going to want to measure it. So to do that, let's just see, we're wanting to measure from the bridge down to here, because we've determined all of this is urban. So it's all tarmac landscape with buildings. So we click on the little measure tool, and that's going to bring up a little crosshair. And I select let me just move this over, sorry. So my starting point, which I'm going to put as here. Click my mouse once, and then I move it to the place I want to take it to, and I click it again, and it'll create a little locked point. I then can move it in a different direction. So I'm going to move it to here. And then I keep tracking along my river, which I can roughly see by the darker area on my map, clicking every time the river changes direction. And you can see up here, it's giving me the distance in meters. Okay, and when I'm happy that I've measured the bit for urban, I can hit done, record that in my little table, and then measure the next bit, which in this case, it could be fields. And I've got a small little farmhouse, but actually most of it's fields. So I want you to sort of think 30, 40, up to 50 meters back from the river. What is the major land use, sort of 50 meters back from the river either side? Okay, and you don't need to go measuring what 50 meters actually is as you move away from the river, but you just go of roughly approximate. That's probably about 50 meters away from the river. Okay, and using that measuring tool will help you calculate the land uses on either side of the river. Okay, so that's the end of today's tutorial, which was how to use the layers of a Google map, how to switch between them, how to use the Street View function, how to zoom in and out, how to turn your compass facing north, as long as the red arrow points north, and also how to do a search up here and use the measuring tool.